Well, good morning from St. Bart's in Midtown Manhattan. My name is Peter Thompson. I serve as the vicar here, and whether you're joining us here in person on Park Avenue or joining us online, it is my joy and delight to welcome you to the forum where each week we hold sacred conversations about the things that matter. And today we find ourselves on the last day of the celebration of the Lunar New Year, and we are honored to have with us Ying Yan, who's the executive director of the New York Chinese Cultural Center, to explain what the Lunar New Year is, traditions associated with it, as we plan to celebrate Lunar New Year, I think, for the first time here at St. Bart's later today. So Ying, I know it's been a long 2 weeks for you. You had many events, and we're honored that we're your final one. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this morning.
Absolutely. Thank you, Peter, for having me. It has been a very busy time, but it's also a great time of celebration and sharing, of our culture to the community at large.
So give us just Lunar New Year 101. What are the basics that we should know?
Okay, well, first of all, Lunar New Year marks the beginning of the new year based on the lunar calendar. So it's usually marked the beginning of the new moon, and then 15 days later, it's the full moon. So it is also called the Spring Festival in the Chinese culture. In terms of the timing, it is usually late January, early February. That's why you can't really mark it in your calendar, and do your calendar reminder for the year. So you do have to check every year. But again, usually late January, early February. And it is a time of celebration for families to gather with, as well as with friends. It's a time of reunion and new beginnings, fresh starts. Some of the traditions, again, Lunar New Year is celebrated by many cultures, a lot of Asian cultures. So a lot of what I'll be talking about will pertain more to the Chinese culture. Before Lunar New Year, some of the traditions is you clean your house, to get ready for a new start. And then the day of the first day, some people wear new clothing. Right? Of course, red is a very popular color, an auspicious color to bring good luck. Families will gather for dinners and meals. There are symbolic foods like long noodles to represent longevity, round rice balls, which is actually usually eaten towards the end of the period of celebration. That represents unity, togetherness. So you can look up, there's plenty of symbolic foods, and it varies by culture as well. But it is a time to also reflect on the past year, a time to think about how you want to approach the new year, and to remember our loved ones. So it's a great time to just share the culture and to learn more about the cultures.
How old is the celebration of the Lunar New Year, do we know? And how has it changed over time, if at all?
I'm not a historian, so I can't really say how old, but when you say how it's changed over time, I'll put it in the perspective of what I know from the, say, American culture. I would say that it has gained more interest over the years. I've noticed, I'm a New Yorker, and I've noticed that more and more communities are learning about it and celebrating it. And I find that extremely heartwarming because, especially in New York City with so many diverse cultures, that it's great to see people reaching out to learn about different backgrounds and cultures.
Why do you think that is? Why is Lunar New Year kind of suddenly on so many folks' radar who weren't paying as much attention before, especially those of us who aren't Asian?
Well, I think one statistic I would share is that the Asian American population is the fastest growing ethnic group in the US right now. Percentage-wise, we're still rather small in the single digits, but we are the fastest growing. And I think that, in the backdrop of what has happened during COVID with anti-Asian violence, that more people are outspoken and aware. And I think as part of understanding and learning about different people, Lunar New Year is probably one of the best ways to learn about the culture and the people.
You talked a little bit about some of the foods. What are other traditions that are associated with this 2-week period?
Sure. Well, as you see, there's a lot of red envelopes. I actually brought some, to show, but I put it away because you can definitely see the red envelopes around. And I have to say that I'm so appreciative of the volunteers here, the staff here, to really decorate the place. So, red envelopes. The meaning of that is when you visit family and friends, you would, particularly in families, it's usually the older generation giving to the younger, usually the unmarried. The married gives to the unmarried, red envelopes. And it symbolizes good luck, good fortune. You put a little money in it. But the real meaning of it is not so much the money that's in it, although kids will beg to differ, but it's it's the red color of the envelope that you're passing on good luck and good fortune. And so I'll share a personal story. My kids, I have teenage kids, but when they were younger, they always look forward to Lunar New Year because that's the only time they can get money for the rest of the year to spend. And then, okay, so red envelopes. Other traditions include putting lanterns or paper cuttings that have characters or Chinese characters with well wishes on it and hanging it around your home and the doorways to welcome and usher in good fortune. There's lion dances around, and so if there's ever a lion dance, if you have the red envelope, you want to feed the lion because they will bring you good luck, and that's why you'll see a lot of these lion dances outside of businesses and storefronts. So, yeah, those are some.
So you mentioned lanterns. Today is actually the Lantern Festival, right? That's the final day of the 2-week period. What does the Lantern Festival mean?
Right. So it really does mark the end of the celebration, the period of celebration, and people would then take down all their decorations at that point. But they will also make actually, let me backtrack. You do make the lanterns, you decorate your house, but right after Lantern Festival, you take everything down. And some of the traditions with the Lantern Festival is that they'll write riddles on it, and it's a fun activity. If you can solve the riddle, you get a little prize. It is also a time to remember your ancestors as well. So in terms of celebrations, Lantern Festival, there are, again, lion dances, there's firecrackers, and it's just to end the celebratory period with a big bang.
Yeah, and I was struck by the symbolism of light because for Christians, this time of year with Advent, Christmas, and Epiphany, we're talking about light all the time, and it was kind of this nice connection to draw of the importance of light across traditions and cultures.
I love that, yes.
You also mentioned the lion dance, which we're going to have one here put on by the New York Chinese Cultural Center after our 11 o'clock service. Can you talk about what the lion dance means and what we should be looking for?
All right, so the lion dance is a traditional Chinese dance, oftentimes performed for festive holidays, especially for Lunar New Year. The lion is an auspicious animal, symbolizing strength and power and wisdom. So during Lunar New Year and other festive occasions, the lions you'll see will parade through the streets and through crowds to interact with the audience and to really bring you good fortune, as well as to ward off evil spirits. That's the other significance of the lion dance. And there are two dancers, one for the head and one for the back. So you'll see that they will mimic the movements of a lion, and sometimes they can be whimsical, and then sometimes they have some powerful movements. So it's always a fun dance, especially for the kids. And you can pet the head; that brings you good luck as well.
So you're supposed to feed the lion red envelopes. Does that mean you're supposed to feed the lion cash as well?
Yes, that would be preferable.
That's part of the tradition,
That is
right?
part of the
Yeah.
tradition, correct. But I would say that later, in terms of the lion dance performance, you do not need to feed them. They have a routine that they're going to do.
Speaking of animals, we welcome in, I guess it officially begins on the Lantern Festival, the new year, the year of the rabbit. Can you talk about why the rabbit, what the rabbit means, and that kind of 12-year cycle that we go through?
Peter, you know a lot.
I did my research.
This is wonderful. Okay. So according to the Chinese zodiac, there are 12 animals in the Chinese zodiac, each for 1 year. So the cycle is a 12-year cycle. And the rabbit is the fourth animal in the zodiac. Some of the characteristics of people who are born in the year of the rabbit, they're kind, they're gentle, witty, and the rabbit symbolizes peace and kindness. And I can say we definitely need more of that in this world. Hopefully we have more of that this year. So it's also the year of the rabbit, a time of self-reflection as well, as we look into the new year.
And people that are born in certain years have kind of personality traits associated with that years traditionally. Is that accurate?
That's the fun part of it. I won't say if it's accurate. Are there anyone born in the year of the rabbit here? Okay. So I would say that the fun part is, as I said, people born in the year of the rabbit, gentle, kind, witty. Also, actually, the rabbit is a symbol of the moon as well. So I was doing a little research too, trying to think about finding notable figures who were born in the year of the rabbit. There's Tiger Woods, Albert Einstein, Angelina Jolie, Kate Winslet, just to name a few.
Well, we have plenty of time for questions. If you have questions for Ying, I think Suzanne, is she here, has question cards to bring around and pens if you want to fill them out. Suzanne will get them to me if you're here in person. If you're joining us online, you can fill out the live chat function on YouTube, the comments function on Facebook, or you can email me, pthompson@stbarts.org, pthompson@stbarts.org. Ying, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about your work at the New York Chinese Cultural Center and what your mission is and what you do in the city and beyond.
Sure. So New York Chinese Cultural Center, we are a New York-based organization that promotes the Chinese arts and culture in an effort to preserve Chinese heritage as well as to build cross-cultural understanding. And our mission, we go out to the communities instead of expecting people to come to us. We were formed in Chinatown, in Manhattan, Chinatown. But what we've done, especially in the recent years, is to go out to all 5 boroughs of New York City, as well as the tri-state area. And with the ability of virtual now, we cut across all throughout the United States. We do tour, but even pre-COVID, we had toured the United States. What we focus on is Chinese dance, Kung Fu, calligraphy, ink brush painting, Tai Chi. So the idea is that using the art forms, we can share about the Chinese culture and reach different audiences as much as possible as a way to learn from each other. So we have a lot of programs in schools. We are in 40+ schools in New York City, whether it's through performances or workshops. And as well as a lot of museums, church. So Lunar New Year is an extremely busy time for us, but also in May for Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we're also very busy. During the summertime, we have a lot of outdoor festivals that we participate in. And then for the fall, the Moon Festival, the Mid-Autumn Festival is another rather popular holiday. So we're quite busy, but we love what we do. Just meeting different people and sharing the art forms.
I'm sure as someone who works in the area of culture sharing, you're familiar with the controversy around cultural appropriation. And I'm wondering what your reflections are on that, especially at this time of year. Now more people than ever who are not Asian are celebrating Lunar New Year. What are our responsibilities to the Asian community to do that responsibly?
I think the fact that you're even asking the question is already a step into, towards that. And I really do appreciate you asking that question. What I think is that the fact you're even thinking about it and wanting to learn about it is great. I don't think you should feel uncomfortable about asking certain questions or learning because a lot of people don't know. Even for me, I learned something new this Lunar New Year about the Vietnamese. They celebrate the Year of the Cat and not the Year of the Rabbit. Right? That's kind of a new development for me. And so I'm constantly learning. I would say that if you have these events, Google, wonderful thing about internet, you can learn a lot. But also talk to people, go out to the different communities, go to Chinatown, experience it yourself, and then learn, take away from it what you want. But I will say that there are certain traditions. For instance, if you go into the home, particularly for Chinese, you take off your shoes, right? So some of those customs, if you're able to know beforehand, it would mean a lot to, I would say for me, when I have people come to my home, I do say, please take off your shoes, and they understand it. But those who come in knowing already, it's wonderful for me to know, oh wow, you took the extra effort to know that.
If someone is new to Lunar New Year, what's the best place to start?
Manhattan, Chinatown, Queens and Flushing, Brooklyn, Sunset Park, the various Chinatowns throughout New York City. Look up online. There are events for the week, usually the weekends, for 3-4 weeks. It's like a month-long celebration. Even though officially it's about 15 days. We start from the beginning of January all the way through mid-February.
You mentioned already that we're living in this time of violence towards Asian communities, and I'm sure that the Lunar New Year takes on a particular resonance in that context. We had the shooting at the beginning of this year's celebrations in California. I wonder if you can meditate a little bit on how we can be a people of peace in this time and justice.
Yes. I had this conversation last night at a Lunar New Year banquet with someone, and the first word that came to my mind was senseless. There's no rhyme or reason to a lot of the violence that's been happening. And of course, the more recent ones, but also in light of the past few years of heightened anti-Asian violence. I won't even try to explain it. I will say that the reactions of the Asian communities that I'm involved with, we're hurting and we're angry. So we need time to heal, but we also need time to react and speak up and be present and to educate, but also be present to let people know we're fellow human beings. We are Americans. We are Asian Americans. There are Asians who are 4th, 5th, 6th generation here. And I think that's the important thing. As fellow Americans, we just have to understand that while we have our different cultural backgrounds and we want to cherish that and share that, at the end of the day, we are all still fellow Americans here. So with that said, we're going to continue to celebrate. Some people have asked the New York Chinese Cultural Center and different other Asian organizations, are you going to take a pause with your celebrations? And we said no, because it would just, it wouldn't help the situation. We want to still be present. We still want to be in the communities to help each other heal and to share that there's a lot we can learn from each other.
How can those of us who are not Asian best be allies to the Asian community?
What you're doing right now helps. I will say from my personal experience, the past 3 years, I've been on, especially during 2021 and 2021 particularly, I had been on at least 3 calls or meetings a week to talk about, how we as in the Asian population, as if I represent the whole Asian population, feel about the violence that's been going on against Asian Americans, and then also drawing on my personal experience. It is a lot of hard work. It is exhausting work. It leaves me vulnerable. So while a lot of people may want to feel like they're being supportive by talking about these experiences, do be mindful that it is exhaustive work, and it's painful work. So just to be aware of that, and then also participate in learning about the cultures. I think that's probably the best way.
Well, aware of how exhausting it is, we're grateful for you speaking to it today.
Absolutely.
So switching gears to kind of lighter side of things, one audience member asks if we have friends or coworkers who are celebrating the Lunar New Year, how is it that we can best acknowledge and celebrate their celebration? Yeah.
Ask them, how can we celebrate? What can we do? It could be a simple thing as go to a restaurant, enjoy a good meal, It could be like what you did, which is fantastic, have this event. And just have conversations, It doesn't have to be big. It really doesn't have to be big. Again, Lunar New Year is about family, friends, appreciating new beginnings, new starts. So, yeah, just have conversations with people.
Another person mentions that they had an exchange student come from China once who said that Lunar New Year is kind of like the American Thanksgiving, just a bit longer and full of more rituals. Do you see that as an accurate comparison?
Yes, I would say so. The only thing I would add, though, there is another holiday, Mid-Autumn Festival, at least in the Chinese calendar. So that is also a time of gathering, and food is a very popular thing. It's a great way to bring people together and to share a meal. So I have often equated the Mid-Autumn Festival as the equivalent to Thanksgiving because it's around the same time. But it is a similar theme of having meals together, traveling long distances to get back to your families. So I can see how that could be related.
Can you talk about the other events that are on your calendar at the center and what you're looking forward to in this year of the rabbit?
Right. How much time do we have left?
Plenty of time.
Okay. As I said, we try to go out to all boroughs of New York City, and we were at Hudson Yards, we were at the Seaport, various museums throughout the city, Staten Island Children's Museum, yes. And so those are Lunar New Year celebrations, whether they be dance and music performances or ink brush painting, calligraphy workshops, and the lion dance, of course. But throughout the year, though, we have, I think at this point, 700-800 engagements throughout the year. And we're involved with 70+ schools, not just including New York City. So we definitely have a lot of events. I would say check out our website, go to our events page, nychineseculturalcenter.org. And a lot of our events are free, so please do join us.
You talked a little bit about your kids earlier. I'm wondering, what does Lunar New Year mean for you personally?
So you were talking about how different people can learn about Lunar New Year. My kids were born here. As Chinese Americans, it's important for me to share my culture, my traditions with them. So they are learning along with everybody else. And so it's an extremely important time for my family, or particularly my kids. And I feel like what I do, and I'm very passionate about my work, what I do, is a role model for them to learn from and to see how the culture is important to me, hence it's important to them. So yes, they follow all the traditions, red envelopes, which they love, new beginnings, new starts, and we eat, again, symbolic foods. But also they realize that it's important they share what they learn with their fellow young classmates and students, young people. So it's been a great journey for me as a parent to see what I teach, that they then take it on and teach others.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into this work and the importance of kind of cross-cultural sharing and exchange and understanding in your own life?
Sure. Interesting. Okay. I've always been involved in the Asian communities in New York City. Starting from a very young age, just going to Chinatown, experiencing, Chinatown and everything that has to offer. I think in my journey, I've always come back to finding what it means to be Chinese American. I'm an immigrant. I came when I was 4 years old, so I'm pretty Americanized, if you want to call it that way. So even for me to understand what is it to be Chinese American, it was a journey. And so to educate myself and to really connect with that, I participated and got involved in a lot of different Asian organizations. So then through that, I led a few Asian organizations and came to New York Chinese Cultural Center because I loved the arts. Unfortunately, I'm not a dancer myself. I have 2 left feet, that's not good. But I bring to the organization some other skill sets to be able to share the arts. And what I love about the arts is that it's a universal language. You don't need to have the language skills because the music, the movement, will express emotions and meaning. And everybody can take something away from it and appreciate the beauty of the arts. And that's what I love about using the arts to promote culture.
You spoke about going into schools. I wonder, is there a moment where you saw something click for a child or a new world open for them in the work that you've done?
Oh, there's so many moments. I think that seeing some of the young students in the schools that we run, say a dance residency, in the very beginning, they wouldn't know how to hold a fan or work with a red ribbon, and they're getting themselves caught in the ribbon. So after 4 weeks or so, you start seeing them. They can do a swirl, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, look, mom!" Or, "Look, teacher, I can do this swirl," right? And then by the end of the 10 weeks, they're able to do a dance routine. So it's moments where you see them smile and they can articulate, well, I'm able to swirl this ribbon as if it's a billowing cloud. They understand the importance and the symbolism of why we do the movements we do. And even the ink brush painting, the characters, right? It's not just stick figures, as there is a stroke behind it, right? And each part of the character, each stroke has a meaning. Right? So it allows them to understand there's meaning behind everything that they see and do. And so as I hear them articulate it, see them perform it, it is very rewarding.
We do still have a few more minutes left. If there are any final questions, you raise your hand and Suzanne will come to you, or feel free to type it in online. This is your last event after 2 full weeks, Ying.
Yes.
How, now that you've done all this public work celebrating the Lunar New Year, how are you going to go home and celebrate privately?
Right. I have to say, I wish it was the last event.
It's not the last event. It's your last day, but not your last event.
It is the last day, technically, of the celebration period. But we do still have events well into the 3rd week of February. And which is great. We'll continue to celebrate as long as there are opportunities to do so. But I will say I'm going to take a well-needed break and rest to spend with my kids and my family as well. One of the things that I love doing is when when the season is over for us, I will talk it over with my kids and say, "Oh, look what we've done," and it allows us to, I guess, celebrate together in that moment.
A question from our online audience about the political tensions that arise between the U.S. and China and have been in the news recently. How is your work in conversation with the kind of larger diplomatic matters that occur?
Right. First and foremost, we are a New York-based entity. We have no ties to China. We're not affiliated. Obviously, ties by heritage and culturally. And we try to stay away from politics. Our mission really is to focus on the arts and using the arts to build understanding and appreciation and love of all people. And so that's what we stick to. And our artists will communicate that through their art forms. And that's, I guess, the way I would react to that question.
And it's important to remember, even in times of political tension, that we have a responsibility to reach across barriers and respect all people.
Exactly.
Question about religion and the Lunar New Year. There are a number of different religious traditions in China, and people of no religion at all. Do folks' individual faith affect how they participate in Lunar New Year celebrations, or is it really across different traditions?
I think it definitely relates, and it's per household, per family, how they do it. So, I guess that's probably the best way I'll answer. I can't really speak to the different religions, and I don't want to misspeak, but, again, it is what's important to you for Lunar New Year and how you want to celebrate it. And whatever your family faith and traditions are, that's what you carry on.
Another person wonders about if you're comfortable sharing a little bit of your personal story about what brought your parents here and what it was like growing up as a child of immigrants in the U.S.
That's a good question. Okay. My parents came to the U.S. because, for education purposes, I have 3 siblings, so we're a family of 4 kids. And back then, you had to take tests to go to certain colleges. And so my parents, who were both teachers, thought that we would have better access to education coming to the U.S. And so they fought hard to get us as a whole family to come to the U.S. I immigrated in the late 70s. And then it was really hard to get a whole family of 6. So we were able to do that, and so we're fortunate about that. And then I grew up in Brooklyn, in New York City. And the challenge for me, I guess, growing up as an immigrant is balancing what I learned about the American lifestyle with my parents' more traditional Chinese ways, and navigating that and finding what works best for me.
Kind of in between 2 worlds at the same time.
Absolutely. I will say, when I go to China, I haven't recently, but when I go to China, they see me as American, and when I'm in America, they see me as Chinese. So that's quite interesting.
Someone asks about the model minority myth and wondering if you can comment on that.
Okay. So the model minority myth is that as Asians, we are a minority by statistics in terms of population. Model in the sense that we model good behaviors. Stereotypes are Asians are smart, hardworking, and you would think, well, those are great positive attributes. right? When they say it's a model minority and a myth, not everybody is that, right? And it also pigeonholes us as Asians in the eyes of others who think that way. Oh, wait, aren't you supposed to be smart? Aren't you, supposed to be really hardworking? And so that's something that Asian Americans deal with. And I think at the end of the day, the important thing is to connect with us as human beings, connect with people as human beings, get to know us as individuals, rather than, well, you're Asian, so, are you this, and this? Or are you not this, and this? So that's the model minority myth.
Moving beyond stereotypes.
Exactly.
And seeing the individuality. Mm-hmm. We have a few questions about lion dances. Can anyone learn how to be a part of a lion dance? Or is it a kind of special responsibility held sacred for a few?
Okay. I would say that the lion dance does require a lot of martial arts agility. You'll see the movements. It is really influenced with a lot of kung fu movements and technique. With that said, I had just at the seaport, I had done an interview with Telemundo, and the host wanted to learn the lion dance right on the spot. And it was great that he asked, and we were able to teach him a couple of movements right there on the spot. So I would say that anyone can participate and have a chance at learning a few movements. But I would say to really master the art form may take years to do.
Well, and it's interactive, which makes it great. Yes. Because it is participatory. Right. But I'm guessing it takes years of training to get to that level.
But to the point of wanting to experience it and learning about it, feeling the weight of the head, and knowing the intricacies of getting the eyes to blink and the mouth to open and close. I thought that was a wonderful opportunity for the audiences of Telemundo to really appreciate and see that from the host's point of view, of the reporter's point of view. Mm-hmm.
Well, you all will get your chance to experience it yourself not too long from now. Ying, any final thoughts or last words for us?
No, I'm just thrilled to be here to celebrate Lunar New Year, the end of the celebratory period with all of you. And I thank you all for wanting to learn about it and wanting to be part of the celebration. And thank you, Peter, for having me.
We're so grateful to have you here. Thank you so much, Ying.
Thank you.
And thank you all for being here as well. We hope you'll stick around and join us for worship at 11 a.m. and then stay after worship to watch the lion dance and enjoy some traditional Chinese foods. And we also hope you'll be back for the forum next week. We'll be having a conversation about the African burial ground. It's Black History Month, and about this large cemetery kind of recently rediscovered in Lower Manhattan, and one of the historical consultants who worked on that. So looking forward to that conversation next week. Have a great Sunday, everyone.